Welcome to Teaching Orchestra. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the rhythm in Bowings and Sandstorm by Eric Branchfield. There are quite a few orchestra teachers in our school district that are non-native string players, and they're excellent teachers, but some of the things don't come as naturally to them, and some of the string playing isn't all that intuitive. And so what works for you in your band classes and what they grew up with doesn't necessarily translate over to orchestra very well. So why is this? It's because of the bow. For string players, rhythm and even tempo are connected to movement. Rhythm mistakes and tempo mistakes, rushing, dragging, are actually bowing mistakes and or technical errors made by one or more of the players in your orchestra. That doesn't mean that you don't teach how to internalize rhythm or how to divide the beat or subdivide, as they like to say. And I'm also not saying that you should skip the metronome. If it's not overused, it can free you up so you can get around your classroom and help kids. But primarily, when teaching rhythm, what we have to think about is what's coming up. How do I prepare for these notes? Where do I need to start in the bow? Where do I need to get to? So let's look at measure 9 and look at the differences and how an orchestra teacher might teach this rhythm rather than a band teacher. So here at 9 in a band class, you might put on a metronome and do some counting and clapping. And in band classes, they tap their feet, right? Because that's a physical thing. Rhythm is physical, so they're tapping their feet to maintain the beat. In a string orchestra, we've got the bow to work with. So in all of these rests, we have the opportunity to set the bow and we have the opportunity to grab the string. It's just a different approach for what we do in the rests. We set the bow, we grab the string with the bow hair, and we get ready to articulate that next note. It's the process of preparation. Set, play, set, play, set, play, and so on. Here in the music, set, play, set, play, set, play, so on. Here, play, set, but even before this note, you got to set the bow. We really run into problems as string players if our movement is static and all of our rhythm is internal. Now, if you're a saxophone player, you might think, I don't play this way. I'm not going to put the saxophone in my mouth and all the rests. I'm going to write this off as some new-aged hippie nonsense, and that's fine. If you have a method that's working for your students, fine. Do what's good for you. But hey, let's look at the teaching companion here, available on teachingorchestra.com, and see how we deconstruct this rhythm to make it easier to teach. So I have this process where we play, we grip, we wiggle the string. Play, play, grip, wiggle the string. So it's a 3-step process. We play, we set the bow, wiggle it, and that's going to make it to where we've got a good articulation here on this next note. It also gives you something to do in the rest so that you don't rush on beat 4, which is typically where kids rush, is right here on beat 4. Now, I need to make clear when I say grip the string, I don't mean grip the bow. We're not talking about squeezing the bow. We're talking about using the bow hair to grab the string. So whatever verbiage you like to use, I like to use wiggle, I like to use grab, I like to use grip. I use those interchangeably, but make sure they're not getting tension in the right hands. So for us as string players, we want to use the time within the measure effectively to prevent rushing. If there's a beat of rest, you're going to have to set and grip on the same beat, but you do need to set and grip. If you skip a step, you run the risk of it not being together or not having articulation on the quarter note. So let's look at measure 82. Bow placement can really affect rhythm, and if your upper strings don't start close enough to the frog, you run the risk of running out of bow for these 8th notes. And what are they going to do when they run out of bow? Now, I'm not going to give you the answer just yet, so pause the video if you need to and think about it. What are they going to do when they run out of bow on beat 4? Good job, that's right. They're going to rush. So we can dig a little deeper here. Why aren't they starting close enough to the frog? Why do they play exclusively in the upper half of the bow? Again, pause the video and see if you can come up with the correct answer. If you said it's because we haven't yelled at them enough, you're close.
I'm in danger.
I'll give you partial credit for that, 4 out of 5 points. But let's look again here at the teaching companion and see how we deal with it here. In the teaching companion, we break this down and we just bow on the open D. It's the same rhythm, but you bow it on an open D. And you can get your students set up and you can walk around your classroom and you can take a look. And you can even use peer-to-peer coaching to have your students take turns watching each other and trying to figure out why they aren't starting at the frog. When they don't start at the frog, it's usually because they have a bad bow hand. So when you break it down simply to where everybody can get their heads out of the score, you can start looking at your students. Look closer, look at the bow hand. Yes, there's a straight thumb there. And if they don't have a bent thumb at the frog, we have a cascade chain reaction of events. The wrist locks, the bow tip goes back towards their left ear, the bow isn't straight, yikes. And look, it's probably not all of them. It could be just one of them doing this, but the others are going to hear that and they're going to go with the earliest sound, especially if they're trained with the metronome, because they're used to following that audio cue. So the rest of the section is going to rush, and vis-a-vis the rest of the orchestra is going to rush in solidarity. Okay, let's look briefly at some of these bowings. There are a lot of backwards bowings here, and if you bow everything as it comes, for me of a player, it feels kind of unnatural. Could I play it this way? Yes. Would it sound any different? No. But one of my favorite pastimes is complaining about bowling. So that's why I usually volunteer to bow the parts, because I love to be the most hated member of the orchestra. Anyway, you could have them do a double up bow in measure 16 and 18. And that's what I would do here. I would just put a double up bow here and a double up bow here. Down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, just to keep everything even. In 19 and 20, it's not quite as bad, but we still have up bows here, and that bothers me because we got down bows here, and it's on beat 1. So what I like to have them do is do a double down bow here after all the quarter notes, and that keeps everything even. Probably not a huge deal, but I don't like it. I like the uniformity, so I'm going to have them do double down after the staccato quarters. And you might ask, hey, teaching orchestra, why don't you just have the low strings play up bows? That's a good question. You could do that, but no. Okay, so what about measure 35? The low strings here aren't even playing, so why are we going to do double up bows here? Well, I'm still doing double up bows because I want to keep it consistent. And then you might ask, well, that's a pretty good argument, but look at what the inner voices are doing. They're doing down, up, and so now we're not consistent here, so why don't you just have them play up bow here? Okay, that's an even better argument, but still no. I just think it's a better bowing to double down on the quarter notes, and I'm just going to do it that way every time. Okay, but what about measure 49? In 49, I'm going to have them bow as it comes, but I'm still going to have them use a Cole bow stroke on the quarter note so that we can keep the articulation consistent for all the staccato quarter notes. You might want to try it a few ways with your orchestra, and they play it and you don't like it, it sounds terrible, then you find something better that works. But in either case, you've thought about it and you've made a justifiable decision rather than just accepted the printed bowings. Dr. Rabin used to say, using other people's bowings is like letting someone else chew your food. Going through and picking logical bowings is an important part of the process, and it affects the interpretation of the music. Hey, calm down. This isn't Mendelssohn. It's Sandstorm. Yes, but first of all, you got a nasally voice. And second of all, to some teachers and their students, this is their Mendelssohn, you know? They learn the techniques and they play the music and they want a meaningful performance because it's the zenith for where they are right now. I take it very seriously and I celebrate their wins in the performance. In my next episode, I'm going to talk about right hand techniques, particularly the string crossings, which can be a barrier for some orchestras. So I hope to see you in the next video.